Week 5 was filled with action and drama. We had some top tier teams go down in defeat. We had some games go down to the wire. We're learning more and more as the weeks go by. It's getting to be crunch time. Here we go.
Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome into View from the West podcast, the podcast covering Illinois high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm Greg Armstrong, joined once again, as always, by Mitch Stormer. Mitch, here we are. We've rolled through the halfway point in the season. The playoff picture is getting a little more clear, but still, like I said in the open, it's crunch time now. A lot to be decided, a lot of pivotal games coming up this week and the next few weeks.
Yeah, so we had 11 teams that reached that playoff qualifying fifth win. But what I think is more interesting, and like you said, it's getting to crunch time. There are teams sitting at 2 wins and 3 wins that still have a window and an opportunity to get to that mark. We talk about 4 wins can get you in, of course, but I think there's a lot of teams sitting in that 2 and 3 range right now that we're still going to be talking about come playoff time.
So the playoff push is on for a lot of teams in our area that when you're looking at that 2-3 win range. Mitch, I think we teased it last week. I think we're going to we're going to look into the crystal ball a week from now. When there's 3 games left, we're fully in the back stretch of the season. Teams that really need maybe next week to win 2 out of 3 to get into that 5-win territory. So next week, we'll talk our crystal ball. This week, Mitch, we're at the halfway point, like we said. I think we need to bust out the mid-season watch list, right? We got players doing some things on the field. Who are our potential player of the year candidates for each conference? I'm excited to get into that.
Yeah, we give our superlatives at the end of every year. Certainly, there's more categories than just player of the year, but for the sake of this episode, we'll just talk about some players that we've really enjoyed watching this season so far.
Yep, so we'll get into that in a minute. Of course, we'll talk about the week that was in week 5, break down the stats and the storylines, and then we'll talk about an exciting week 6. Mitch, we haven't really talked about what games are coming up, but there are a few big time rivalries, some marquee matchups with a lot of playoff implications on the line. I'm excited to get into it. But before we get into that, before we jump all in, Mitch, you know what we got to do.
Yep, I know what we got to do. We have to thank tonight's sponsor. Tonight's episode is brought to you by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services as the big nationwide companies, but with a faster turnaround, and their uniform pricing is a fraction of the cost you are probably used to. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information.
We love our friends over at Breedloves. We once again thank them for the merch that rolled out earlier this season. Mitch, I can't promise anything. We're going to try to open the store up one more time this season. So might try to reopen it. So if you missed the window earlier this season, we're going to try to get that back open maybe for a late season push here. If you want to grab, now we're getting later in the season here. Maybe grab one of those warm, comfy hoodies to wear out there.
Right.
Could be perfect for playoff atmosphere, So nothing guaranteed. We're going to try to get something open and, get you what you want if you missed it the first time around. Of course, Mitch, you can find us on X. You're all over it on Friday nights. You're all over it during the week, posting standings, posting scores, all the updates on Fridays, of course. You can also find us on YouTube and on Instagram. Just search View from the West. Mitch, did you see the highlights, the sideline highlights of the Monmouth-Roseville Princeton game? I was able to get those posted up on Sunday afternoon. It's exciting atmosphere out there in Monmouth. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, 14 minutes of tremendous highlights. I'm glad that was the game that you were able to get to this week. Obviously, we'll get into how that game played out, but certainly one of the most consequential games of the week for sure. So the celebration that was there, obviously, you had not only the big win, but you had Coach Adolphson's 100th win, and just a really exciting atmosphere on the sidelines in that stadium. So you got the fireworks, you got everything. So yeah, those are tremendous highlights that you shot on Friday.
Well, thank you, sir. Anyone interested in going out there, like I said, head to YouTube, search View from the West. You can find highlights from Lena Winslow earlier this season, highlights from Fulton's win over Forreston to start the season. We got highlights from Newman when they beat Erie Prophetstown. So highlights from around our area. Of course, we had highlights from Quincy when they knocked off Moline and Braden Little's historic night there at Browning Field. So highlights from across our area available right now to check out on YouTube and on Instagram. Mitch, I made the trip to Aledo this weekend. I was live and in person for WRMJ Sportsline. It was great. It was a good time with Jim Taylor, Ty Taylor sitting down and, just hanging out in the downtown studio. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, I was able to catch it live, so good to hear you on the radio waves there. At that glorious venue with that beautiful sign on the outside of the building. So,
Yep.
Yeah, that was cool. Hopefully, you had a good experience. Had you ever been there before?
I have not been to the new studios. They opened it up, I think, less than a year ago. They're right in downtown Aledo. It's a brand new renovated building, and it's awesome. It's such a cool location. Their main recording studio is right there on the corner. It's all glass right around there. You can see out into the downtown. Really cool setup down there. I've been to WRMJ before in the past when they were in their old location, but to see this was really neat. So good times out there.
It was great.
Of course,
it was great.
Go back, listen to Sportsline from WRMJ. You can find that on anywhere you listen to podcasts. They post it up on Saturday afternoon, so you can go back and listen to that. Really good, in-depth coaching interviews they get every week with area coaches. This week they brought in Jeremy Adolphson to talk about his win over Princeton, so that was really interesting. And then, of course, they have the coaches from Mercer County, Rockridge, Sherrard, Orion. So there you go. All right, so Mitch, like you referenced, we have 11 teams that have reached the playoff qualifying 5th win. Let's run them down. Give us the list here.
Okay, let's start with our 11-man teams first. From the Western Big Six, that's Quincy. Track representative so far is Monmouth Roseville. We've got 2 in the NUIC, Lena Winslow and Dupec. The Lincoln Land has a pair. They have 4, a pair on each side. Stark County and Princeville, and then Farmington and Macomb. So those are the 8 from 11-man, and then the 3 from our 8-man teams. That's Milledgeville, Polo, and West Central, who remain unbeaten in 8-man ranks.
Yep. We'll talk about it. We'll talk 8-man down at the end of the show, but I would say that Polo and Milledgeville were certainly teams that were on our list, but I think West Central kind of snuck up on us a little bit here to be back. Obviously a dominant year a few years ago, and they won a state title, but they kind of fell off the map a little bit last year, but to be back here past the halfway point, have not had a home game yet, still sitting undefeated. Right. So it's a great start for them any way you look at it.
Yep, no question about it. And there's about 3 or 4 4-1 teams there in 8-man that are sitting that have a real good shot of making a playoff run. So yeah. Lots to look forward to as that season continues.
One of those being Ridgewood, who got the huge win this past Thursday night. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, well, let's start with the big schools. Start in the Western Big Six. Quincy gets the win 49-7 over United Township. Braden Little, 332 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jarius Rice, 141 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns. Tykel Hammers, 100 yards receiving. So just again, this Quincy offense continues to churn out production week in and week out. It's impressive. And we're getting to the point now where we knew it was coming, but Braden Little is way way high on the all-time lists here in the IHSA.
So our guy Don O'Brien, he had these scribbled out on a yellow pad. So Braden Little now has moved up to number 4 all-time in IHSA history in touchdown passes, sitting at 96, and moves into 5th place in all-time passing yards, 8,323 passing yards. So this is a game that he got intercepted twice. You don't see that a lot, so a credit to the UT defense on this. But as well as UT has played this year, we kind of talked about it in the preview that it's just there's so much firepower on this Quincy team, and you saw it the before in the Moline game. It's just nobody has figured out how to slow this team down. So when you've got the playmakers that they do on both sides of the ball, games like this are what you come to expect. So another nice win for Quincy as they stay unbeaten in their quest to go back to back here in the Western Big Six.
You mentioned it that Don O'Brien had posted a picture of his handwritten notes on a yellow legal pad. That's true old school journalist right there. I love it. You gotta love that. And Mitch, can we go on a side tangent here real quick? Have you seen on X every week the Quincy Blue Devils post like a uniform unveiling every week?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you noticed they tie in like local businesses along with it?
I don't think I've noticed that.
Okay, so they kind of like tie in like a local business or a place around Quincy. Did you know that Quincy still has a TCBY? Do you know what that is? Like a TCBY was like frozen yogurt. Do you remember that?
No, I don't think ring a bell at all? No, TCBY. No, I do not.
Okay, anyway, TCBY, the frozen yogurt place in Ottawa, Illinois. I loved it. It was awesome. I didn't know those places still existed. Now I really got to go to Quincy.
Yeah, I mean, what better reason to go? You could
clearly
catch a football game, catch a basketball game, get some TCBY or whatever you just said. Yeah, all the more reason to go.
Man, clearly you and Morrison missed out on the TCBY hype back in the 90s.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Not a clue.
Well, shout out to the Quincy TCBY because I love it. I wish Ottawa still had one.
Well, TCBY, Greg, not a sponsor, but certainly could be. I'm open.
Absolutely could be.
Let's talk about one more thing for Braden Little.
Yes.
We talked about this the week before with Sterling's Caden Phillips, but Braden Little, the recipient of the Chicago Bears High School All-Stars Award, of course, following his huge performance that you mentioned earlier against Moline. So those recipients get a personalized football. It's a real cool honor. So congrats to Braden on that as well.
Mitch, the Chicago Bears love our area, man. Caden Phillips getting the award. Now Braden Little getting it.
You have to think they listen, right? I'm going to assume that.
I absolutely am going to assume the same thing. All right, so let's move down the way. Geneseo gets the win over Galesburg 28-21. This game was tied at 14 after the first before the Green Machine would pull away. So kind of a tight battle here for Geneseo. I don't know that we saw this coming. We thought Geneseo would win, but maybe by a little more than this. Great effort from Galesburg.
Yeah, I think I might have said on the Instant Reacts that I've still got some more questions when it comes to Geneseo than I do answers. They're sitting at 3-2, so there's I think an opportunity for them still to get into the playoffs. I just don't know what their identity is yet. The first couple of weeks, again, you're not playing the greatest competition, but they looked really strong defensively. Moline comes in to Geneseo and really takes care of business. UT does the same at the Soul Bowl. So for starters, good for Geneseo to get back into the win column. It's an intriguing game this week with Sterling, but I'm still just trying to figure out who these Maple Leafs are, what their identity is in Coach Furlong's first year.
Yeah. Looking on the Galesburg side of things, though, big night for Jamar Range. The Silver Streaks fall short, but man, not from lack of effort from Range. Again this week, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 160 yards on 3 carries in the first quarter. This kid's putting up some big numbers. We'll talk in a minute about our midseason watch list, but great effort again from Range.
I mean, he's got to be close to 1,000 yards through 5 games. So, yeah, really, really impressive night for him as well. Galesburg continues to fight, and you like to see that from the Silver Streak. So, close game here, but ultimately it's Geneseo getting the win.
Yep. Yeah, and a win is a win. Style points don't matter, so you get the win any way you can. All right, let's keep moving down the list. Moline gets the win 37-12 over rival Rock Island. Maroons rushed 70 times in this one for 377 yards on the night, mixing in just 1 pass all game. So, Mitch, it's a real Stormer-like effort here.
Yeah, that's the truth.
This coming from the former quarterback.
Yeah, right. No, the more times I didn't pass, the better. Big night for Mark Carey. We've called him a couple times this season, 177 yards and a touchdown. Elijah Warren was over 100 yards as well. surprised to see that this was the 8th straight win in the series, Greg. That's a big a big time kind of
Yep.
streak, I guess, for Moline. Um, yeah, they've looked good, haven't they? Outside of that Quincy game, but again, who's looked good against Quincy?
Yeah.
So I think Moline continues to solidify their spot as the second team in this conference. I don't foresee them giving up that ground. So yeah, great game for Moline here this week in a rivalry game.
Yep. So one more game to cover here in the Western Big Six. You had Sterling in non-conference action going on the road to Beloit Turner, getting the win 32-0. So the third straight win for Sterling after an 0-2 start. They've looked good, and they got one athlete in particular that's really making a name for himself.
Yeah, we talk about him just about every week. It's Caden Phillips. Scored the opening touchdown in this game. Kind of a you got Moss type of highlight catch.
I saw that. Yep.
Into the wind, I think, too. So great toss from Drew Nettleton. Phillips ended the night with 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, we don't, again, we never know too much about these out-of-state teams, but we do know that Sterling has really figured some things out on both sides of the ball, and they're playing really well here with 3 straight now.
Yeah, I think Beloit Turner was considerably smaller enrollment than Sterling, so I guess the victory here, maybe Sterling thought they could get a win here based on, size alone, but either way, you got to go on the road and get the win. What I love, the Caden Phillips highlight that Sterling Golden Warriors posted just said KP doing KP things. And I think that's...
Yeah, I mean, that's just what you expect now. Yeah.
Yep, that's all you got to say. So, all right, well, let's look into week 6. It's Moline who will be in the non-conference game this week. They will be hosting Harvey Thornton. That's an 0-5 team. That game will be Thursday at 6 o'clock. You also have Quincy going on the road to Galesburg. That game also on Thursday. Geneseo at Sterling. So that rivalry ramping up again in week 6. And you have United Township hosting Rock Island. Mitch, interesting week here. Where's your head go? What's the game you look at?
Well, let me ask first, are these Thursday games because of referee shortages?
I believe so. That's kind of why I said interesting week, right? Because 2 Thursday games kind of squeezed in here. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I think was it on the Instant Reacts or was it on Sportsline? Put it on Sportsline, and Jim kind of went on a tangent on officiating and the kind of the, I call it what it is. It's a little bit of a crisis at this point, right? You see a lot of crews doing multiple games, and the more you see that, or the less crews that we have, we're really going to get into trouble here. So, it's just it's a call for help for anyone who might be somewhat interested in officiating and getting involved in the game and grow the game, because it's getting dire. So please, if you are in a spot to get out there on the sidelines and help these kids and officiate these games, please do so. The good news for Moline and Quincy, I think, and I mean this of no offense to Galesburg, but these will be tune-up games. These will be games that these teams can operate on a short week on. Galesburg certainly gets the advantage of being at home in that, but for Moline, I do not believe Harvey Thornton is any good whatsoever. So again, use this short week to really fine tune some things, get 3 good practices in, whatever it is, and get ready to go on Thursday. With that being said, I have a lot of questions about Geneseo and who they are. And so you take the Green Machine on the road to go to Sterling, an upstart Sterling team who's playing really well. Geneseo has shown signs, right? But I don't know. But I think there's more intrigue in that game more than anything. And UT and Rock Island, obviously, you've got UT trying to come back from that tough week against Quincy, against an 0-5 Rock Island team. As UT, I mean, they're trying to get into the playoffs. So this could be an opportunity for them to take that one step closer.
Yeah, when I look at Geneseo and Sterling, they come in with the identical 3-2 records, but I think you got to feel a little bit better about Sterling, right? Heading into this one, just based on the way they've been playing coming into it. Now, you never know. And we've had moments with each, right? Early in the season, we were kind of questioning how good or where was Sterling, at. And they've really kind of turned it on here in the last 3 weeks, taking advantage of the schedule and really won some games, really won some good games here after a slow start against some really good opponents. On the flip side, Geneseo is looking to find themselves to get the win over Galesburg, not as much as we thought they might, but that could be credit to Galesburg for playing really well. So that's an interesting one. And then United Township and Rock Island. We've talked a lot about Rock Island struggling. There's still some talent there. United Township has seemed to figure some things out, and they're playing some good football right now. Big game for them, right? If they want to keep that playoff push alive, big game for United Township. That game, I believe, is going to be, it's at the Soul Bowl. So
at the Soul Bowl.
Benefit of being at home in that one. But, that's another one of those, Western Big Six rivalry type games. And man, Rock Island, they're desperate for a win, right? They want any sort of positive momentum. And at this point, if they can play spoiler, knock some teams off, that's absolutely what they want to do.
Yeah, I think this is a must-win for UT because that would put them at 3-3 in their last 3 weeks. They've got Moline, Regis out of Wisconsin, and then Galesburg. So, and by the what it says on IHSA, Regis is 6-0. So, again, take that for what you will with being out of state. I don't know, but regardless, it's a hard slate those last 3 weeks for UT to find that 4th and 5th win. So I think it has to start here with a win against Rock Island.
Yep, you're absolutely right. All right, Mitch, well, let's look around some of the names we've already talked about, but let's go into our mid-season watch list. Who are players that have the potential to be our player of the year in the Western Big Six? I mean, I think we know where it starts here, right? We know where the list starts, and that's in Quincy.
Yeah, it starts in Quincy, and at the top of that list is our defending, not only Western Big Six Player of the Year, but our defending Player of the Year. Of course, that's Braden Little, managing this offense that's been so great. But again, where would he be without his weapons? And we're talking Jarius Rice, being a kind of a dual threat running back, if you will, being able to run the ball if need be, catch balls out of the backfield. And then you got Rico Clay, who's been just a tremendous addition to that offense, being just one more weapon, right?
Yep.
What's one more? But also being a tremendous player on defense. So, yeah, every week we talk about Little, Rice, and Clay, amongst many others. But the short list, we'll keep it to these guys.
As you say, you could put Tykel Hammers in there as well, right? I mean, that's
oh yeah, you could name 5 more players, I'm sure. But yeah, for the sake of this, we'll keep it short for now. But yeah, they got a lot of good things going on in Quincy. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think a couple other names, when you look at Moline being right next to him up there in the top of the standings, I think Mark Carey or Elijah Warren had a big week this week. Those were a couple names there, but there's a couple names on some teams here that I think that they're doing everything they can to carry their team. When you start looking at Caden Phillips and Jamar Range.
Yeah. I mean, even in losing effort, this past week for Jamar Range, but he also had that big breakout game against at Bartonville Limestone where he put up similar numbers. And then I look at Caden Phillips, who had 2 punt returns against UT and really won that game for Sterling. Seems to be a highlight reel every time he steps on the field. So, the Western Big Six, we're blessed with a lot of talent to watch year in and year out. And this year is certainly no different. Not only these 7 names, but this list could go on and on and on. So it's fun to watch each and every week.
The View from the West Player of the Week is brought to you by Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. You can check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com.
This is Dan Pearson of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Our FCA team of staff, board, and volunteers is pleased to support View from the West with Greg and Mitch. Our Northwest Illinois FCA team is 3 teams in 1, serving coaches and athletes in the 3 Rivers, Northern Illinois, and Greater Peoria areas, all with schools covered by View from the West. For more information, email me at danpearson@fca.org. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
The Quad City's first and only fantasy football show, For Fantasy's Sake, has you all covered when it comes to all of your fantasy football needs. The guys come to you live every Sunday morning during the football season from 10 to 11:30. They've got the best analysis, rankings, DFS, and gambling advice between the Rock and Mississippi Rivers. So tune in to For Fantasy's Sake every Sunday during the football season from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Hey, this is Brett Bielma, the head coach of the Fighting Illini from Prophetstown, Illinois. You're listening to the View from the West podcast.
All right, let's get into the Three Rivers Athletic Conference. We'll start in the Rock Division. There were some really good games. This is a really great week for the Three Rivers. I mean, just marquee matchups, great performances, great finishes.
The greatest week of all time,
according to Brian Stocking. Absolutely. Disregard the time that they had two state championship teams playing on the same day. But
now let me ask you this, because maybe my brain is foggy.
Yeah,
I was thinking that was the year that Newman and Bureau Valley played for the titles the same year. I think Newman won and Bureau Valley lost.
Okay.
On Sportsline, Ty said Morrison and Newman. I don't remember if Newman played for the 2A title or whoever was in 1A and 2A that year.
Yeah.
I don't remember. If I remember, I think it was my junior year. Newman won 2A, Bureau Valley lost 3A, but they played back to back the same day.
Now you're pushing me. I was thinking it was one of those Morrison Newman years, but I don't think there was any crossover. We had Lena Winslow and Newman win on the same day. Okay.
That was one of our first years that we did this. I don't think in any of the two Morrison ones Newman played after. In my head, I was thinking this would have been 04 Newman and then Bureau Valley.
Yeah. Well, someone listening to this, take time to pause and look it up. I'll probably look it up right when we're done recording. But yes,
that's my guess. I in my head I was thinking 04.
Okay. I know it happened. I'm trying to remember when. Or at least I'm pretty sure it happened. So, okay. Well, back to the games at hand in the newly crowned
2024.
In 2024 greatest night ever in the track. Newman gets the win 15-7 in overtime over Rock Ridge. Briar Ivy scores on the first play of overtime. Then Matthew Blackert intercepts a pass to seal the win. So just a battle here, Mitch. This is kind of one of those coin toss games, goes into overtime. Well played on both sides, and it's Newman coming away with the win.
Yeah, back-to-back years, these two teams have really put a low-scoring game. I think it was 12-7 last year, and Newman came away with the victory in that one too. So, Newman takes the reins here atop of the Rock. And they did it with just a lights-out defensive effort. It's incredibly hard to shut out this Rock Ridge offense, and their lone touchdown came on a pick six. And so to keep all the playmakers from Rock Ridge out of the end zone is a tremendous accomplishment. You know, I texted Coach LeMay after the game. He just said he couldn't be more proud of his kids and what they've been doing all season. So good for Newman here to kind of continue their rise up the conference here. And boy, they keep playing like this. Not only will they win this division, but they are going to be a tough out in the 1A North.
Hey, credit to Coach LeMay and I think some of his coaching staff. They stayed up till well after 1 a.m. to wait for the Instant Reacts pod to post immediately so they could listen to it on, I guess, not Friday night, but early Saturday morning. So,
yeah, as soon as we get done recording, he texted me. He said, "You guys doing an Instant Reacts?" I said, "Yeah, we just got done recording, but I think it won't go out until Monday." And then that's when I texted you, and you said you'd put it up. So, they had to have the party keep going there. So, yep. Thanks to our friends at Newman for listening to the show.
I love it. Yep. So, looking on the defensive side of the ball, Daniel Kelly had a blocked field goal. Also, Rock Ridge, their score in the game, their one touchdown in the game was a pick six from Trevor Dye. So just, a testament right there, proof of the great defense being played on both sides of the ball. You know, I think in hearing some of head coach Sam Graves from Rockridge, some of his response on Sportsline on WRMJ. I think he was battling through it. He was bummed out by this one, like a lot of, I'm sure like the players, like the other coaches in the community, because this Rockridge team is now, sitting at 3-2. But man, this is a really good 3-2 football team. I mean, they have played, even in their losses, they've played really well. And I think that there's still a lot of great things ahead of this team. It's just, you ran into a really good Newman team on the road, and you played Princeton earlier this year. Like,
Right, and they've got Monmouth Roseville coming up. So, worst case scenario, if Rockridge goes into the 2A playoffs sitting at 6-3, they are going to be an incredibly tough team to face. Trying to think off the top of my head where they might rank. I could look up what Kyle just put out, but regardless, whatever their record is, this will be a formidable team in 2A, no question about it.
Yeah, still some fun games left down the stretch here involving Monmouth Roseville. Newman, I think Newman plays Monmouth Roseville in week 9.
Week 9.
Which that potentially is like a de facto Three Rivers Athletic championship game, right? When the two divisions cross over there in week 9. So that's really cool. That could be a really fun atmosphere, really fun game.
We'll get into that in our crystal ball next week.
That's right. Well, Mitch, a 15-7 final Newman win in overtime. I think that's game of the week type quality here.
Yeah, I think so too. And shout out to Jim Taylor. He had the call on this game. That was fun to listen to. But View from the West, game of the week, is sponsored by Nate Neighbor of Modern Women of America. From protection to savings to retirement, contact Nate Neighbor today to put together your financial game plan. He's always just a call away at 309-233-2656. Modern Woodmen, touching lives, securing futures.
All right, another game from the Three Rivers Rock Division. It's Erie Prophetstown getting the win 20-14 over Mercer County. This was a great game, went down to the wire. It's the Panthers of Erie Prophetstown going 20 unanswered to pick up the big win here. Keegan Winkler threw a 12-yard touchdown pass to Max Milam with 15 seconds remaining to give the Panthers their first lead of the night after trailing 14-0. What a game here.
Yeah, it was. And I shout out Jim Taylor. I'll shout out Ty Taylor for the coverage of this game. So that touchdown that gave them the lead, EP kicked, and according to Ty in the broadcast, made the extra point. The refs never called it.
What?
I can't remember if there was a penalty or an injury or something. They just never even counted it. I texted Ty while the game was ending. I said, did they not count that? And he said no. So I don't know what happened there, but it was a wild ending to an even wilder play. But in the end, it didn't matter. But
yeah, so Winkler was 9 for 14 passing, 108 yards to go with the touchdown pass. He added 71 on the ground on 19 carries. Mercer County's 2 scores were runs from Peyton Sedam and John Baldwin. So I give a ton of credit here to Erie Prophetstown because they started the year, 2-0, playing really well. They battled through some injuries. They had a tough stretch there where they lost 2 games in a row. And then to be down 14-0 in the first quarter in this one, I mean, it was a blink of an eye and they were down 14-0. And to battle back, right? And to have that kind of, that fortitude to not give in that early when things hadn't been going your way the last couple weeks. That's big credit to Coach Whitebread and to that staff and to those players.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the week prior, I mean, a 41-0 loss to Rock Ridge. Obviously, we talk up Rock Ridge a lot and for good reason, but that I remember seeing that score and just being like, wow, what happened there? And so to get their guys healthy, to get them back, obviously it's going to happen throughout the season, but they're in a good spot here. They're sitting at 3-2, and they've got 3 winnable games here the next 3 weeks before they end with Princeton. So I think this is a legitimate team that's going to be sitting at 6-3 going into the playoffs. They've already matched their win total from last year. So yeah, this is an EP program that is really on the up. Your EP Panthers, Greg, from the beginning of the season. So
that's right. I felt good about them going in, and I hope that we'll see what they can do here.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up doubling their win total and getting into the playoffs. So yeah, just a tremendous effort here from the program and Coach Whitebread and the Panthers all together.
Yep. Like I said, they battled through some injuries here. I'm hoping that they're on the other side of that, right? And that's kind of in the rearview mirror. I hope they continue to get healthy here as this, playoff push here. They hit the home stretch because I think there's a lot of potential for this Erie Prophetstown team. One more note in this Erie Prophetstown Mercer County game, there was an official who went down on the sideline, must have taken a hit, and I think it's a broken leg, or it was a pretty serious leg injury. Down on the sideline, left in an ambulance, was hospitalized overnight, and hoping for thoughts go out to him and hoping for a speedy recovery. Because like we talked about, I mean, officiating is at a premium, and it's hard to find officials, and you just feel awful for for somebody out there doing their job and giving back to the sport and have it happen like this.
Right. Well, I think it was Jim. Did he say that the crew stayed with him in the hospital till like 2 a.m?
Yeah, I mean, that's, which is awesome.
That's what it's all about. I mean, that's the relationships and the camaraderie against or with guys that you're working with. These crews, obviously, they stick together for a long time. So yeah, I mean that's something good that comes out of a bad situation to hear stories like that. So yeah, we wish that official the best and get him back on the sidelines next season.
Yep. All right, one more game here in the Three Rivers Rock Division. You had Riverdale getting the win 28-26 over Orion. Mitch, this stat blew me away. Riverdale gets their first win since 1971 at Orion. So now they don't obviously play every year or every other year at Orion because these teams have been in different conferences. But either way, it's a landmark win for the Rams and just one more positive, for this program as they continue to kind of build up.
Yeah, win number 2 for the Rams here. They remember they didn't win any last year, so it's a credit to Coach Dierks and this program for sticking in and putting in the work and letting the numbers kind of build back up. So they're sitting at 2-3 with some opportunity maybe to get to 5, but in this one, boy, I mean, the helmet watch alert. Kane Beckett, 267 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Rams. So he's only a junior, so a great performance from him. Orion was down. I mean, Riverdale built a pretty big lead. Orion was down 22 at one point. Was able to kind of make it a game late, but Riverdale able to secure this victory. So once again, congrats to the Rams.
Yeah, it just seems like, for this Orion program, they have spurts of, playing really high-end football, especially on the offensive side of the ball, right? The beginning of that Newman game, they come out and score 14 points and they're in it early, and then it's just things kind of fall apart and they can't hang around. In this game, it's almost the opposite. They get themselves in such a hole and they have, a way to fight back into it. They fight back into it and they come up just short. It's a, tough season all the way around. Kale Filler continues to put up big yardage. And they have some pieces on offense, but I think just the numbers game plays against them. And there's just, some things that they can't get, some hurdles they can't overcome. And it's tough season right now for Orion, but they're continuing to battle. And like Ty said on on WRMJ the other day, a lot of respect for the 22, 23, 24 kids that are out right now. I think they've battled some injuries too. So the numbers are low, but credit to those kids who are out there playing hard because they're seeing a lot of football, right? There's very little rest for them in a 4-quarter football game. So a ton of respect for those kids that are out there battling.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's look ahead to week 6. Newman at Mercer County, Erie Prophetstown at Riverdale, Rock Ridge at Orion. That Erie Prophetstown at Riverdale, that's an interesting one.
My email to Ty when I sent in my picks was EP Riverdale could get weird.
Okay.
I'm not going to reveal my pick, but again, I've been impressed with how Riverdale has looked, even in weeks that they've lost, and certainly in this win over Orion. And EP, again, which EP team's going to show up, right? Are they fully healthy? Are they not? So we'll see. I do think that Newman at Mercer County is a good matchup, but Mercer County is going to have to be on point on offense to kind of keep up with this Newman team. Yeah, I think most of my intrigue though goes to EP at Riverdale because I want to see if Riverdale can get this win. Don't know if they will. I think EP is tough when they're at full strength. Riverdale at home in this one. If Riverdale wants to get into the playoffs, though, which is a crazy conversation to have, right? Coming from 0-9 last year and what they had going against them the year before that, Riverdale's in a good spot. So I would love to see them keep that momentum going and get a win. But EP's in the same predicament.
Brian Stocking predicted it. Riverdale 24, Erie Prophetstown 20. Now, I will say, Brian Stocking is a Riverdale alum, of course, so maybe he's a little biased. Maybe he comes with a little bias coming into that.
Yeah, you think?
So, but he's calling playoffs for Riverdale, and that would be a big win to get them in the right direction. But hey, Erie, like you said with the Erie Prophetstown, that's my team. So I'm watching them closely as well. Mitch, I talked about it the other day. We'll talk about Monmouth Roseville and their win in a minute here. But do you think, is there another Monmouth Roseville over Princeton type of win left on the schedule in the Three Rivers? If there is one, could it be Mercer County at Newman going on the road to Mercer County? Mercer County's back's against the wall. They got to play a really good game. I'm just saying that would be that type of game, right? That would be that surprise factor.
I don't know if those two things are in the same stratosphere.
Well, in what way?
You had two unbeaten teams.
Okay, sure.
And a team trying to overcome the 6-time defending division champs. All right. The thorn in their side. We'll get to the scores of that series here in a minute.
Okay.
Would Mercer County over Newman be an upset? Yeah, for sure. But I'm not putting it in the same category as Monmouth Roseville over Princeton.
But it would be that type of thing. If Mercer County pulls off a win in this one, it's that one that makes you turn your head, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, in that regard, sure.
Okay, that's where I'm going with it. Follow me here. Come on. All right. Like I said, I think Newman is the favorite in this one. I really have been impressed with what Newman does now on both sides of the football, offensively and defensively, of course. But I'm just saying, Mercer County's back's against the wall. They're at home. You never know. Maybe weird things happen at George Pratt Memorial Field on Friday. So
never know.
You never know. All right. Mid-season watch list. Who's our player of the year candidates for the Three Rivers Rock Division?
Yeah, four really, really good players. We'll start at quarterback. Sophomore Colin Schweigen at Rock Ridge, obviously a dual threat player, can really, really sling the rock. He's got a lot of weapons around him. And again, we're talking about this Rock Ridge team that's had 2 tough losses to Princeton and Newman, but they've got a lot of season left in front of them, and certainly playoffs as well. Guy you mentioned, Dan Kelly for Newman, maybe the best defender in the conference. I think Coach LeMay would certainly put him up for that. Certainly his play on Friday nights shows that as well. So, really like those 2 names. Who else you got?
I look at the performance that Mason Gray had for Mercer County earlier this year and kind of the numbers he's been putting up. He's stepping in for Talon Whitehall, who's out at running back. And I think it was one of those things where, Whitehall was somebody they really looked at in that Mercer County offense. He goes down early in the season in week 1, and they kind of got to figure out who's up, next man up. And Mason Gray's really filled the spot. That's a kid that I look at as a potential, player to watch there.
Yeah, he's got a player of the week helmet on his shelf already.
That's right.
So yeah, he's been a lot of fun to watch. Another name that's been fun is Cale Filler, the name that you mentioned earlier, quarterback for Orion. And for the reasons that you mentioned, it's been an uphill battle for Orion each week with the numbers that they have. But Cale Filler has been putting up numbers that are really impressive. Became the Orion all-time passing leader earlier this year. I'm sure he'll hold, if he doesn't already, hold every passing scoring category for Orion in their history, which is no small task. So Schweigen, Kelly, Gray, Filler, all tremendous players so far at this halfway point.
A few other names I wanted to toss out there from Erie Prophetstown. I wish we could see, a long stretch of a healthy Dimitri Larson. I think he's such a weapon, and he's been out and been kind of hit or miss here with injuries. So it's tough to, I want to put his name in here because of the athletic talent he has. But a couple other names they've got, you're talking Keegan Winkler at quarterback, Connor Keegan at wide receiver. They've been productive throughout for this Panther team. And I think if this Panther team wants to make that playoff push that we talked about, those are names that are going to be getting the job done. So those are a couple other players to keep on the list as well.
Yeah,
All right,
and look, I think Kane Beckett's had a great year for Riverdale. Obviously, he's coming off of his best game so far, but he's always that name that's scoring touchdowns for the Rams. So, yeah, a lot of fun talent here in the track.
All right, let's get into the Three Rivers Athletic Conference, Mississippi. And when we're talking about this Mississippi side of things, the matchup, maybe the matchup we were watching for in the preseason, and it lived up to the hype. Monmouth Roseville gets the win 31-3 over Princeton. It's their first win over Princeton since 2017. I mean, Mitch, I was there. I was lucky enough to walk the sideline in this one and be shooting video. This was a great atmosphere. Homecoming for Monmouth Roseville with, all the recent history, which you'll get into in a minute here. Just a great effort from the Titans to come away with this win in such convincing fashion.
Radio station there, is it WMOI?
Yes, I believe so. Yep. Sean Temple on the call.
Those dudes go nuts.
Yeah. I love it.
They are excited about every play.
I did catch a little bit of that broadcast on my way from United to Dobry Field. But I didn't get a chance to listen to enough of it. But it's great.
They were certainly hyped, and for good reason. But yeah, this is the game that I listened to this week and paid attention to. But man, they just came in and just punched Princeton in the mouth. I don't know what else you can say. They dominated this game. They had some tricks up their sleeve early going to the passing game. We've seen Mount Roseville do a little bit of that, maybe onesie twosies every week, but they came out, Andrew Way and Peyton Thompson were really connecting early, and it was just a wild thing to listen to, a wild thing to see the highlights, because we're just so used to Princeton being the one that's dishing out this sort of punishment to Monmouth Roseville even. And just to see, and it's of no, it's all of the credit to Monmouth Roseville for taking it to Princeton, because this Princeton team is still really, really good. And so is Monmouth Roseville. So a great game. Would love to see it again. Maybe have a shot at that in the playoffs. But for now, it's Monmouth Roseville that takes control of the Mississippi for the first time. And I think Princeton's the 6th-time defending champs.
Yeah. So, I mean, just that defensive effort and just the winning the battle in the trenches on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively for Monmouth Roseville, really impressive here. Princeton never really got into a rhythm offensively. They had a couple different drives go into the red zone, and both times Monmouth Roseville comes up with a stop. They let, I say let up. Princeton had the opportunity to kick a 49-yard field goal. And for Monmouth Roseville, at that point, you kind of put your hands up and say, what else can we do, right? We held them this deep, and they still kicked the field goal. So great effort there from, Ian Morris?
Ian Morris.
Yeah, so Ian Morris comes away with the huge boot. Again, that's been a reoccurring theme for Princeton. So that is the lone highlight for the Tigers, that they get that record-setting field goal. But other than that, they really weren't able to get anything going. And that's just a credit to this defense. Mitch, I wish we could give out like 5 or 6 helmets for like the offensive or defensive line. I did reach out to Coach Adolphson and ask him, like, who are some names we should be talking about? He mentioned Ivan Godina is one of the guys. He's also their kicker and their punter, who is in on a lot and really made a difference. And Nick Houston, 3 tackles for loss in this one.
Houston was everywhere.
Yep, exactly.
Also, I think I said Andrew Way for some reason. I meant Andy Myers. I'm sorry, Andy. Quarterback Andy Myers. I'm sorry.
So Andy Myers connecting with did he connect with Peyton Thompson for 2 receiving touchdowns early in the game?
Those were the first 2.
Yep. And then he had 2 rushing touchdowns in the second half as well. So Monmouth Roseville going to the air early in this one. We've talked a lot about Monmouth Roseville being a ground and pound team this year, not really passing hardly at all. And in talking to Coach Adolphson, they had a little wrinkle this week, that they had some formations that they'd been running the past few weeks that had strictly been running plays. They'd been using the same formation and done some run design plays out of it. But then this week, going into the Princeton game, they used that same formation, and added some passing into it. And man, that was effective. And, I heard Coach joking about, even though they weren't showing things, in the games the last few weeks, they were practicing it a whole lot in practice. And man, it showed. They came into this game and they executed. And I think it really caught Princeton off guard early on in this one, built that 14-0 lead. And then you saw the Titans go to the ground and do what they do best, right? Just grind out first down after first down. They had a 97-yard drive where they slowly kind of just punched it downfield, got to about just past midfield, and it's one big breakaway play from Peyton Thompson. Actually, it's up on our YouTube channel right now. It's over on Instagram as well. He makes a spin move and then just outruns everybody down the sideline to the pylon with a leap into the end zone. It's a very exciting play. And that was it. That kind of sealed the deal. I think at that point that made it 21-3 in the third quarter. And, that was Monmouth Roseville was running away with the win.
Yeah, and just kind of put it in perspective, and I ran these numbers during the Instant React show, but just to kind of put this into perspective, these are the last 6 scores of this series. 40-0, 35-0, 48-0, 55-14, 43-12, and 21-0. All of those were in favor of Princeton.
Yeah.
So this has just been a team that Monmouth Roseville has been unable to overcome, whether they've finished runner-up in the division or whatever. But they finally took it to them. It was a great win, great atmosphere, great night for everyone involved. You had the highlights; you were all over it. So, yeah, great win for Monmouth Roseville here.
Yep. And shout out, credit to Coach Adolphson, his 100th victory in his coaching career. He's been around this area coaching for about as long as I've been around the area shooting video, and I've always kind of followed along with him, and we've become friends over the years. So credit to him. And, for the program he's built there at Monmouth Roseville. I think that, early on when he took that job, Monmouth Roseville was one of those programs that, every once in a while they'd have a blip on the radar where maybe they were, kind of coming close to a playoff team, or they'd make a playoff and win at 5-4, or make a playoff run with a 5-4 record. And, he wanted to be that consistent team that's, every year in the mix. And this win is one of those huge steps in that direction, right? They're now a team that you kind of expect to be in the playoffs, and now moving forward, I think winning some games. So congratulations to Coach Adolphson and Monmouth Roseville. It's a great win. Next up, it was Sherrard getting the win 28-21 over Mendota. It's the Tigers' second win in a row, and this one was a dramatic win. Came down to the wire. In the final minute, Sherrard knocks down a Mendota pass at the 5-yard line to seal the win. But overall, this was a gritty, kind of gutty performance, kind of an emotional win for the Tigers here.
Yeah, Carter Brown, he's been in and out of the lineup with injury this year. One of the best athletes in the entire conference. It's a joy to watch him. Went down, left in an ambulance with a leg injury. We don't know the extent of it, but we certainly wish him the best. Certainly a scary moment, but it rallied the team. Garrett Woodward, who I watched play in the Princeton game, and was impressed with how he played. He came in, and it kind of had that attitude that he wasn't going to let this team lose. So certainly, again, like you mentioned, 2 in a row now for Sherrard. Some momentum for this team. Good to see them get back-to-back wins.
Yeah, really cool to hear from Coach Johnston talking about, Carter Brown goes down with the injury, and, you have that timeout, and you have that moment to kind of gather yourselves. And, he said, looking around the huddle, there's kids that were, upset. And, it's very distracting, obviously, not just for players watching their teammate leave in an ambulance, but it's their friend, right? It's their classmate that they're seeing there. And so I think, Coach Johnson talked about kind of looking at them and kind of regrouping and saying they were on defense at the time. They had to get a stop, and then they were going to go on offense. And he mentioned, him and his coaching staff just saw what Garrett Woodward did when he stepped in there. And it was like, he just refused to lose that game, that he was going to, take over and do whatever he had to do to help that Sherrard Tiger team win. And a lot of his, and his teammates followed suit, right? And they were all determined to win that game and, kind of win it for Carter, because for as much as he does for that team, for him to be out, they step up and get the win. And it's a cool story and just a really cool moment for this Sherrard Tiger squad. Now they have 2 wins in a row. building a little momentum as we head down the home stretch of the season here. So one more game, Kewanee gets the win, 42-7 over Hall. So Kewanee now sitting at 2-3. They're one of those teams that when you start looking down the way, there's some wins on the schedule. Can they get to 5?
Mm-hmm.
They're in the mode now for that playoff push to get to 5 wins.
Yeah, I think they'll be favored in 3 of their last 4 games. So,
yep.
Yeah, still a chance here for Kewanee to overcome that 1-3 start.
Yep. All right, well, let's talk about week 6, and we'll talk about Kewanee. They are hosting Mendota. You have Sherrard going on the road to Monmouth-Roseville, and Hall going on the road to Princeton. So, for last week, we had a lot of games that were, I think, real toss-up games in the Three Rivers. This week, I think these are a little more predictable, but you got to avoid that letdown, right? For especially a team like Monmouth-Roseville. You're at home again against Sherrard. Sherrard's won 2 in a row. Like, don't get too caught up in still looking back at last week and, and all the hype surrounding that. You got to stay focused here.
Yeah, I think you said it the best. I don't know what other way to put it. That I think we can predict who's going to win these 3 games in this side. But again, that's why you get on the field and see what happens under the lights. So, we'll see if Monmouth-Roseville can, again, not let the moment get too big for them against the Sherrard team that's won 2 in a row, and see if they can keep it going.
Yep. All right, well, should we move into the watch list here for the Three Rivers, Mississippi? Mitch, I'll let you start. Who are the names that catch your eye? Some names we've just talked about this week for sure.
Yeah, one name that I mispronounced. Andy Myers, quarterback for Monmouth-Roseville, and his top target in some cases, or his lead back, Peyton Thompson. Just 2 guys that we talk about a lot every single week, that have been leading this Monmouth-Roseville team. And again, they looked dynamic on Friday night against Princeton. So they are certainly on this list. But on the other side of the ball, in that game, Princeton, 2 names from there that we talk about a lot. Ace Christensen, Casey Etheridge. They have been very, very good running the ball this year for this Tiger team. In absence of a player like Noah Laporte, who would typically be on this list, he did come back in this game for Princeton against Monmouth-Roseville, but certainly hasn't had the snaps that he's accustomed to. But for Ace and for Casey, they keep doing their thing week in and week out.
Yep. I think, speaking of Noah Laporte, another name that we just referenced, I think that Carter Brown's name would certainly be on this list, if not for him battling through injuries. He is a dynamic playmaker, so we wish him the best. Hopefully, he can bounce back sooner than later, because he'd be a name that if he was healthy would certainly be on this list as well. But yeah, I agree. Those are some names to watch for sure.
This episode of View from the West podcast is brought to you by Simulation Sports. In addition to golf simulators and batting cages, Simulation Sports provides golf club repair, custom fittings for driver shafts, and even private lessons for golf, baseball, and softball. Whether you're looking for a fun group activity or want to fine-tune your skills and equipment, Simulation Sports has something for everyone. Visit their facility at 400 South Main Street in Monmouth, Illinois, or go to thesimulationsports.com to start playing today.
Shouldn't financial advice focus on you? I can help you plan for your financial future, from protection to saving to retirement. I'm Nate Neighbor, your Modern Woodman representative. Call me at 309-233-2656 or find me on the Modern Woodman website.
Get to know your local Modern Woodman representative to plan for your financial future and learn about valuable member benefits. Modern Woodman of America. Touching lives, securing futures. Securities offered through MWA Financial Services, Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Modern Woodman of America.
View from the West podcast is also sponsored by the Cupcake Cartel, gourmet cupcakes that are made to order. Over 40 flavors, including wedding cake, lemon blueberry, strawberry milkshake, snickerdoodle, and Oreo. Perfect for weddings, birthdays, showers, fundraisers, or any event. You can find the Cupcake Cartel on Facebook. We thank them for their support.
Here we go, the LLC Large School Conference. Mitch, this was a battle. This was a matchup we were excited to see. Farmington versus Elmwood Brimfield. 2 teams, 4-0 versus 4-0. And wow, Farmington They came to play in this one, and maybe they made a little bit of a statement of their own here.
I certainly believe that, going on the road, and as you mentioned, going against an unbeaten and fun Elmwood Brimfield team, they come away with a 40-0 victory in this one. Just an incredible performance from the Farmers.
Overall, it's a great performance for the Farmers. And Mitch, if we're talking about offensive production for Farmington, you know the name. You know who we're talking about here. He does it again.
Yeah, it's Lane Wheelwright. 300 and let's see if I can do my math. 323 all-purpose yards, 291 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 32 yards on the ground with a rushing touchdown thrown in there. Boy, his highlights were great from this one. Thrown into the wind, didn't make a difference. He has continued to put up performances like this week in and week out. He is our defending Lincoln Land Player of the Year, I believe.
He was our Lincoln Land Large School Player of the Year a year ago, correct? Yep.
Yeah. I think my fantasy quarterback when we did that episode. So, yeah, it's fun to watch him week in, week out, just to continue to do his thing. And, again, this was a game, unbeaten, Elmwood Brimfield on the road, and Farmington just dominates.
So a year ago, Lane Wheelwright was our Large School Lincoln Land Conference Player of the Year, but he did not win a mini helmet. Mitch, is this the week that a mini helmet, a Breedlove's Player of the Week award is going to Farmington?
And maybe the toughest week that we've had to decide. There was plenty of great performances. There was 2 more names in this game alone that we could have we could have given a helmet to. But across all of our teams and across all of our conferences, we had so many good performances that we had to debate about this for a couple days. But yes, this week, week 5, Lane Wheelwright is the Breedlove Sporting Goods Player of the Week, and we'll be getting a mini helmet sent out to Farmington in the next couple of days.
Love it. Awesome. Now, Mitch, somebody just asked us last week about how we decide tiebreakers. We debated through text throughout the day today about who we were going to pick. Yeah. Can you let the listeners in on who broke our tie this week?
So I had to get an unbiased opinion.
Yes, very scientific here.
And 2 people who would have no idea what I'm talking about. So I asked my wife and my 12-year-old daughter, and I had 3 names, and I didn't give names obviously because they wouldn't know anyway, but I gave the stats and I gave some, additional information, and they were pretty clear that it was Lane Wheelwright in an unbeaten matchup here. And just again, over 300 all-purpose yards, 6 touchdowns, seems to do it a lot. And so, but to do it in a game like this just makes it all the more impressive. So if my wife and my oldest say that's how it is, that's how it is.
Yes. Congratulations to Lane Wheelwright. You're the Breedlove's Player of the Week, and you're a big hit. You're very popular in the Stormer household. So
that's right.
All right. Well, you said, Wheelwright had a great game, but how about Jack Gronwald? He was up for, Player of the Week honors as well. He could have been a Player of the Week as well. 10 catches, 212 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in our Player of the Year finalist. He's been having just one heck of a year. Again, I wish that we gave out, I bet we could have given out 8 helmets this week. Jack would have gotten one for sure. Hey, look, there's 4 games left. There's a lot of, opportunity there to get another one, but he's been putting up performances, maybe not quite this big because this is 212 yards and 3 touchdowns, but I think he's going to be on the short list for Player of the Year in this conference because he's been a lot of fun to watch too, just like Wheelwright.
A 90-yard touchdown reception, and then just a short one for only 49 yards. So
just 49, no big deal.
Yeah, and if we're talking about the offense, they obviously played great defensively because they held them to a shutout. But how about special teams? Carter Lambin doing it again. Another blocked punt. That's 7 in 2 years.
Think about that.
I know. I know.
Teams don't do that.
Exactly.
Teams don't do that in 7 years.
Yeah.
And Carter, I don't know what Coach Vallis has drawn up or if it's a special teams coordinator or defensive coordinator, whoever. I mean, they've got it figured out, and Carter Lambert is the secret weapon there. 7 blocked punts in 2 years. That's crazy.
That's awesome. Shout out to Coach Vallis for texting in the middle of the instant reacts, right? And giving us that info.
Yeah. Yep.
We love it. We appreciate it, Coach. All right, let's go through the list here. Stark County gets the win 39-14 over West Hancock. We'll talk about that one in a minute when we talk about the small school division and their scores. Bureau Valley gets the win 46-13 over Knoxville. Bryce Helms, 4 touchdowns. At the half, he was 8 for 8 with 99 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. So again, Bryce Helms could have been on the list for a candidate for a player of the week.
Yeah, he got a hashtag helmet watch on Friday night. No question about it.
Yeah, but he wasn't alone. Tell us who else we're watching for and names we're familiar with here at Bureau Valley.
Yeah, Eliza Indris had 3 touchdowns and 11 tackles on the other side of the ball. This has been a fun season to watch Bureau Valley in their first season here in the Lincoln Land Large. We didn't. I'll just put it on me. I didn't know what to expect from them this year. We knew they had great players coming back, but boy, this is a great performance. Great second half effort from BV here to hold Knoxville scoreless and pick up the win.
Yeah, when you start looking at, it was a close game early, and then for Bureau Valley to really step up and limit Knoxville to little to none, no points in that second half. Really impressive effort there. Speaking of impressive efforts, Macomb remains undefeated on the season. They get the win 29-20 over Breeze Mater Dei. Braden Holthouse was his usual excellent self, rushing for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns, also throwing for 114 and a touchdown. But it's the Bomber defense stepping up, making some plays here against Mater Dei.
Yeah, 3 interceptions. So you mentioned it. The Bombers are undefeated, and as much as we talked about the Farmington Elmwood Brimfield game last week, we'll get into this a little bit more in a minute. Macomb going on the road to Farmington in week 6. Huge game in the large side.
I love it. We'll get into it in a minute here. Another score, Illini West gets the big win 50-16 over LVC. So, Mitch, that's that Illini West team that we talked about. Could they win out? Could they make a playoff push here? They're moving in the right direction, at least with this win this week. So, all right, looking ahead in week 6, Macomb goes, like you mentioned, Macomb is at Farmington. Huge matchup in the LLC large school side here. Knoxville on the road at Illini West. Elmwood Brimfield at Bureau Valley. Another really intriguing matchup here. And LVC on the road at West Hancock. So one of those teams coming away with their first win of the season. There's some really good matchups this week.
Yeah, like you said, LVC and West Hancock may be at the bottom of the standings here, but one of those teams will get their first win. Knoxville and Illini West, again, 2 teams in the bottom tier of this division, but Illini West still has that opportunity to get to 5. I think that they can do it. Intrigued by Elmwood Brimfield and Bureau Valley. Elmwood Brimfield certainly the bigger school here and coming off of a loss, but they can score a lot of points. So I think it'll come down to the Bureau Valley defense if they can stop this Trojan team. I mean, this is a program they got shut out against Farmington, but before that they put up 41, 42, 71, 60. This Elmwood Brimfield team can really put points on you if you're not careful. But look no further than a marquee matchup than Macomb going to Farmington will most likely decide this division.
Yeah, I would think that's got to be the Lincoln Land Large Conference Championship, essentially, right there.
I mean, Braden Holthouse versus Lane Wheelwright. That's gonna be awesome. Must-see stuff.
Yep, is awesome. So, I'm interested to see if Elmwood Brimfield can bounce back. Obviously, we talked them up coming into this game for good or for last week for good reason. They were playing really well. They had given up some points, and that was a little bit of a concern. But to be shut out, I think was an impressive statement by this Farmington defense. So can Elmwood Brimfield bounce back? What can they do against Bureau Valley? I think that's, a matchup I'm definitely following.
Going back to Farmington Macomb, these are 2 defenses that have not allowed 100 points yet this year. Football, far and away the top in this side of the division. Farmington's only allowed 52 points this year. So, again, you've got two really dynamic quarterbacks coming in that's going to, try and break through that wall, so to speak. So, yeah, I'm excited. I can't say nothing. I'm excited for this game this week.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for all these games, really. You start looking through it, they're all really interesting matchups. So, all right, let's get into the midseason watch list for the LLC large school side. A couple names we just talked about. The quarterbacks, Braden Holthouse for Macomb, Lane Wheelwright for Farmington. That's, I would say, two of the tops on the list, but there's a few other names in this list.
Yeah, Jack Romwell, we talked about it. I think he's going to be on the short list for Player of the Year for Farmington. Bryce Helms, quarterback for Bureau Valley, always seems to have nice weeks. And Bo Windish for Elmwood Brimfield, always slinging the rock. Certainly, offense couldn't get going against Farmington, but they did every week before that. So, yeah, great season so far for Windish.
Yeah, a kid I like to watch for sure. I want to, follow how he can bounce back in this one against Bureau Valley and see what he can do moving forward, because he's been putting up some big time numbers early in this season. So, all right, let's get into the Lincoln Land small school side of things. The game we talked about a little bit earlier, Stark County gets the win 39-14 over West Hancock. Solid all the way around effort from the Rebels, holding the Titans to just 14 points. The Titans did put up 319 yards, but Stark County was able to hold them out of the end zone for a majority of the game. On defense, Chris Barnwell led with 10 tackles. Chase Holstrom had 9. A couple names we're very familiar with on that Stark County Rebel defense, calling them out week in and week out. The Rebels defense also grabbed 2 interceptions. But on the offensive side of the ball, hey, they're getting it done. Chris Barnwell's getting it done as well on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, you just mentioned that he led the team with 10 tackles. Also had 2 touchdowns on offense. How about this, Greg? 2 rushes, 46 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So if you're gonna carry the ball, you might as well score. So good for Barnwell on that one. 23 yards a carry, that works out too. The name that we call every single week, Nolan Orwig, 151 yards rushing and 2 scores. Dylan Steelman, 133 yards and a touchdown. So this is, Stark County is undefeated for a really good reason, and they are going to be a lot of fun to watch moving forward.
Yeah. One thing I did note, the Rebels did fumble the ball 4 times in this one. They lost 3 of them. So I think clearly something you need to clean up there. But overall, this team is playing some good football. Same as last year, right? They were solid on both sides of the ball. They played good defensively. They slowed teams down, and they were able to score some points. So overall, just playing really solid football. Another team in the Lincoln Land playing really well, also sitting at 5-0. The Princeville Princes, they get the win over United 40-8. This was where I started last Friday night. So good to get my eyes on Princeville for the first time this season. Jake Williams, name we've been familiar with now. 10 of 19, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, had 50 yards rushing and a touchdown. His weapons from the wide receiver position, Hunter Johnson, 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jet Benningfield with 50 yards and a touchdown. So overall, like we talked about with Stark County, this team's playing well on both sides of the ball as well. The defensive effort, great from the Princes here again Friday night.
This was a big defensive effort. They had only allowed 2 total yards up until the middle of the fourth quarter.
That's crazy.
United ends up with 111 total, but that front 7, Caden Sarnes, Colin Lowry, Colin Carruthers, all had sacks in this game, forced fumbles, interceptions. So, yeah, the Princes have been really, really impressive this year, obviously sitting at 5-0. This might have been their most complete game. They've got another one, chance to kind of do something similar this week against South Fulton, but then their last 3 weeks, and again, we'll do more of this next week, but then they've got Stark County, Rushville Industry, and Anawan Weathersfield to end the season. So they should be in already with the 5th win, but they've the hardest part of their schedule still might be, left for them.
Yeah. Quick shout out to Brian Wonders, sends us Princeville information on X and through email every week. I tried to get there early enough to meet him down on the sideline and, say hi to him, introduce myself, but I think I missed him. He was already up in the booth. So anyway, just a shout out. Thank you. We appreciate all the information throughout the season. And I'm excited to see, maybe not this next week, but the week the week after that potential undefeated battle between Stark County and Princeville. We'll get there eventually, but I'm excited.
Week 7 is going to be fun for a lot of games are going to be fun in week 7.
All right, so a couple other results here from the Lincoln Land A&W. Anawan Weathersfield gets the win 36-0 over A-Town. Maddox Heisler, 100 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and a passing touchdown. That went to Nick Thurston, who also had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. So this Anawan Weathersfield team getting the win here, moving to 3-2 on the season. They got some critical games down the stretch here, but they're in a good spot. They've gotten to 3 wins right now. See what they can do down the way. A couple tough battles, though. We'll talk about those down the road.
Yeah, shout out to Maddox Heitzler for kind of stepping in that quarterback role and, really doing well with Anawan Weathersfield. It was good to see Zeb Rashid back on the sideline and get into a couple plays on Friday. Hopefully he's getting near full strength for this team as they continue to progress towards the playoffs. Boy, what a weapon he would be to be back at full strength from playoff time for this team. They could be a sleeping giant, but yeah, good win here for them. And like you said, they've got some good opportunity here. Sitting at 3-2 now. Havana coming up here this week. I would favor them in that game to get to 4. Their last 3 weeks are tough too. I'll save that talk for next week. But back-to-back wins, I think they have a good chance for 3 in a row here.
Yep. All right, well, a team you just referenced, Rushville Industry, they get the win 38-31 over Havana. So, Mitch, the Rockets, now 4 wins in a row after that loss to Stark County in week 1. Yeah. So, really impressive the resume they've been putting together here.
Yeah, I think they're a team that's going to be sitting looking at 6-3 at worst, maybe 7-2. So, yeah, shout out to Coach Lafferty and the Rockets, 3-6 last season. So, they've already surpassed that. So, really, really good. A lot of good things left on the docket for these guys this year, I think.
One more game, a game that kind of surprised us a little bit. South Fulton gets the win 36-34 over Roval Williamsfield. That's South Fulton's first win of the regular season. They're now sitting at 1-4. Roval Williamsfield falls to 3-2. Mitch, we've talked about it. This Roval Williamsfield team, they won 3 games in a row to start the season, but there were some close wins along the way. And it just seems like, another close game here, and they fall short. Luck kind of runs out here. They couldn't come away with this one, but, still a team with a lot of talent, and we'll talk about kind of the stretch they have maybe next week. But, it was a kind of a head scratcher here for this one.
Yeah, I think this was one that the Cougars needed to win if they were going to get back into the playoffs. That they've got a tough slate of games here coming up the last 4 weeks. But we'll see if they can get it right this week against Stark County.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of Stark County, Roval Williamsfield will go on the road to Stark County. United will be at A-Town. Anawan Weathersfield will be at Havana. And South Fulton will go on the road to Princeville. I think, man, I'm starting with that Roval Williamsfield Stark County game. Obviously, the Cougars, they need a bounce back game here. It's a tough battle against an undefeated Rebels team than Roval Williamsfield to be on the road, but there's still a lot of talent there, and they've played some good football early in this season. They can put it all together. Could they pull the upset here?
Well, and this is a rematch of playoffs last year where Rova kind of came away with the win. I think Stark County was maybe banged up that week, and Rova Williamsfield took advantage of that. So I'm sure they've been thinking about that for a while there. So, yeah, I think the other games are a little bit more predictable. Maybe even this one is too, but certainly some intrigue there.
Yep, for sure. That's a game to watch for there. Mitch, let's talk about our mid-season watch list for the Lincoln Land. I'm starting with Jake Williams from Princeville. That's a name that's kind of come onto the scene here, leading the way for an undefeated Prince's team. He's a player I really like. Good dual threat quarterback. He could throw the ball around, and he's got some weapons around him to help him out, but he's played really well.
Yeah, I would add Jet Benningfield to this list too, his top target. Didn't have the numbers that he usually does this week. Still scored a touchdown, though. So, yeah, Jet Benningfield's really come on the scene. I would add Noah Norwig from Stark County. We talk about him every single week. Typically, their leading rusher. Big part of this offense. And I would add Maddox Heitzler in there. Again, converted wide receiver to quarterback. He's kind of filled some roles for a team that's been injured this year, and he's done really well. They've won a couple games in a row now, and they're just keep inching their way to another playoff spot.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I agree with those names. Names to watch for sure. I think names that'll certainly be in the mix when it comes to time to pick our player of the year for the Lincoln Land small school side. Let's head up to the Northwest Upstate Illini. Fulton gets the win 45-6 over Dakota. Dom Kramer, 182 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He was also 11 for 14, 197 and 2 touchdowns through the air, 3 2-point conversions. So, Mitch, we don't shout out enough 2-point conversion attempts. So I'm glad we got that note in there.
We've got a lot of teams that don't kick it. So yeah, these are crucial conversions. And let me just say, as we just talked about for Player of the Week and how we kind of debated and talked about this for a couple of days, boy, did Dom Kramer have an excellent week. I mean, this is 379 total yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, this is an absolutely incredible performance from him. So don't want to not shout out the performance. So certainly a helmet watch worthy type of game for Dom. And this was a great win for Fulton.
Yep, Steamers got out to a fast start. Their second play of the game, 67-yard touchdown run from Kramer. He followed that up on Fulton's next possession with an 84-yard touchdown. He's an exciting player to watch. We have the highlight from his run on a 4th down against Forreston early in week 1. He's an exciting football player, and he showed it all off in this game for sure. Braden Myers added a pair of interceptions, including a pick 6 after halftime as the Steamers pulled away in the second half. So good, solid win for Fulton, a win they needed. This is a team that, is looking to get back on track. It's a nice win for them. And speaking of bounce back wins, Morrison, they get the win over Forreston, 28-12. Morrison rallies from being down 12-0 at the half. So the Mustang defense rises to the occasion after halftime, limiting Forreston to just 85 yards in the second. That's a big time effort for this Mustang defense.
Yeah, coming off of a game of kind of getting blown out against Dupec, and that kind of make it six straight quarters that they were held scoreless. But yeah, they came back. Big play of the night here. Levi Milder scored a touchdown that put them ahead for good. But on Forreston's next play, they fumbled. It was scooped up by Mustang defensive lineman Austin Boonstra, rumbled 40 yards for the score. We love the big fellas getting in the end zone. And again, that just completely flipped the momentum. Reynolds Reedy led the way on offense for the Mustangs, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns on 15 carries. So yeah, like you said, a great win for Morrison here to get back into the win column, get a conference win. And they've got some work to do, but sitting at 2-3, game against Dakota coming up, could get to 3-3, and then it gets interesting in weeks 7, 8, 9.
Well, I think that's a team we'll be talking about maybe next week when we start looking ahead at their schedule and what they need to do to make that playoff push. Other games in the Northwest Upstate Illini, Dupec gets the win 61-13 over Galena. Dupec looks as ready as they can be for this big game coming up this week against Lena Winslow. They cruised to victory against this Galena team. They put up 554 yards of offense. 3 Rivermen ran for over 100 yards, including Cooper Hoffman, Dermot Dolan, and Lucas Russo. What an effort here from the Rivermen.
Really good performance here. Hoffman finished with 255 purpose yards and 5 touchdowns, so he's certainly on helmet watch as well from this game. It was a quick start from Galena. They had like a 55-yard rush, I think, and then Roman Romer scored on the very next play. So Galena was up, but the defense was stout the rest of the way. They had 3 interceptions. Romer had both of Galena's touchdowns in this one, but it was way too much Dupec. And they looked really, really good against Galena. So they've got a ton of momentum going into this game against Lena Winslow, who had the week off. Does that help? Does that hurt? I think we'll see. But this is certainly we'll get into it in a minute, but the game of the year, no question about it, in the NUIC.
Absolutely. So Lee Wynn, like you said, gets the win via forfeit when they lost their opponent, Mineral Point, Wisconsin, about midway through last week. So disappointing for them to lose a game, especially for those seniors but they get the forfeit win. They move to 5-0.
Yeah, and I think they went to the Dupec Galena game, so a little bit of scouting there. So maybe maybe they were able to
That
get something out of a quote unquote bye week.
Yeah, that would make some sense. All right, one more game, a game we were really interested in seeing how it plays out. Eastland Pearl City gets the win 34-8 over Stockton. Eastland Pearl City running back Draven Zier. I talked to him via Instagram, and it is Zier. So
Got it.
fear the Zier. Draven rushes for more than 200 yards. Eastland Pearl City's defense shut down Stockton. A great effort there. They limit the Blackhawks to just over 100 total yards. So what an effort, and a little bit of history here, which shocked me. I did not know this.
Yeah, per Kyle at NUIC football, it was EPC's first win over Stockton in the co-op's history. Certainly they don't play every year, haven't played every year, but still, when EPC's been playing for a while, so to get this win in the history books is good for them. So man, they're playing like the Wildcats of old. So good to see. Both of these teams have had great seasons. We've talked about Stockton a lot. This score surprised me, and it's all the credit to EPC.
Yeah, so Eastland Pearl City now sitting at 4-1. Stockton falls to 3-2. And then again, in the middle there, Galena took the tough loss, but they're still sitting at 3-2 as well. So we'll talk maybe next week once we know one more week of results, kind of what the playoff picture looks like, but a few teams to kind of keep in mind there. Let's look through the schedule that is in week 6. Dakota at Morrison, Stockton at Forreston, Fulton at Galena. EPC hosts a non-conference game against Westmont. And the big one, Mitch, I think we got to start talking about Dupec at Lena Winslow. This is the matchup this year in the Northwest Upstate Illini.
Yeah, I don't foresee how it does not determine the conference. It's been these two teams for as long as this podcast has existed. The only two unbeatens left. The two best defenses in the conference. Dupec is certainly the best offense. Lena can score at will. I'm trying to think of a key here. I think it's got to be Lee Wynn's defense. Can you stop Cooper Hoffman?
Yep.
Can you stop Dermot Dolan? I think Lena has the speed to, I don't want to say expose this Rivermen defense, because this is a defense that, again, does not put up or allow a lot of points. They put up back-to-back shutouts against Dakota and Morrison, and only allowed 8 to the EPC team we just talked up. So, and the more I say that, the more I think just on the flip side that it'll be up to Lee Wynn's defense to stop all of these playmakers that Dupec has. So it seems like it's the same conversation we have every single year.
Well,
you know what I mean? And so this will be fun. This will be a very, very fun game to see. And again, just like the Farmington Macomb game, and just like some of the games in the track from last week, I think this is one of those games that's going to determine the conference.
Yeah, I think for me, this matchup comes down to who wins the battle of the trenches, who wins up front in this one. I think we've talked about Dupec has all of the weapons. They have the offensive explosive, the firepower, but can that line show up, and can that line be a factor here, a big factor in this one? I think if they are, I think that's a huge sign for Dupec. At the same time, Lena Winslow, I have the same questions, right? I want to see if their line can lead the way. I think that goes a long way in winning this football game.
Yeah, this was a bit of a shootout last year. It was a 48-27 victory for Athena. So again, you got two teams that can really put up points when they want to, and against two defenses that are pretty stout. So it's a toss up for me. The intriguing thing to think about for me, and I said this to you before we started recording, in a scenario that Dupec wins, not only does that propel them to the top of the conference, not only does that probably propel them a little bit further in the 3A rankings, does it or would it almost help Lena Winslow's playoff run, where they would be ranked maybe a little bit lower as a team that finishes at 8-1? and maybe they don't have to run into a Bloomington Central Catholic early on, and they sit in a 3 or a 4 seed or something as opposed to the 2 seed. I don't know. I don't think it's if Lena wins or loses this game, I don't think it's by any means bad news. Other than they would potentially probably lose the conference, but I almost kind of think it helps their playoff perspective.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I mean, I think it's all kind of the wild card of like, where do the teams like Bloomington Central Catholic or Rockford Lutheran, the schools coming from the bigger metro area conferences, who would have probably 3 losses on their schedule, or maybe even 4 losses on their schedule. It just depends on where they fall, right, in the mix. And so, yeah, it's interesting.
And,
I think,
and we've seen a lot of projections the past couple of weeks, and so these things will switch out for the next 4 weeks. I think the probability of them seeing one of those teams that you just mentioned decreases if they come in as a 3 or a 4 seed in the 1A North.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Yep. It'll be one to watch for sure.
They'll get them first round. No matter what I say, they'll get them first round.
I'm gonna keep my eyes on that one for sure. They'll have a live stream available. I'm hoping that we can keep our eyes on for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lena usually has those streamed. I don't think they have announcers, which is unfortunate, but it should at least have video.
Okay, good deal.
I could be wrong. I could be misremembering that.
Yeah. So, looking ahead, opportunity for Morrison to grab another win here against Dakota. Mm-hmm. And you look at that Stockton and Forreston game, Mitch, that one's really interesting too, because you got Stockton at 2-3, and you have Forreston sitting down there at 1-4. I still think that's a dangerous 1-4 football team, especially at home.
Yeah, I think so too. Both teams coming off of losses. So yeah, that's a toss up. I think Fulton and Galena becomes a must win for both of those teams.
Yep.
Fulton can get that win. They get to 3-3, but if Galena gets it, they're up to 4. So, I think the road to the playoffs gets a little bit easier for both of those teams. If they do win, especially for Galena, if they get past Fulton and sit at 4, they've got Dakota the next week, and so that would be 5. So yeah, the Pirates would be sitting pretty. So I would say it's a must win for, even though there's a path to playoff if they lose. I think it's a must win for just solidifying 5 wins for both of these teams.
Yeah, that will be definitely in the conversation next week. Like we said, we'll get out the crystal ball next week, and we'll really kind of break down the last 3 games for a lot of these teams that are on the bubble. So mid-season players to watch from the Northwest Upstate Illini. I think we start with a name who's been a constant the last few years. Cooper Hoffman for Dupek continues to get the job done through the air, on the ground, leads this Dupek Rivermen team. He's a dangerous weapon. He's definitely in the mix.
Yeah, no doubt. One of the speedsters for Lena Winslow grabs my attention. That's Jalen Rakowska. If he gets the ball, he is gone in open space. So look for those 2 players on Friday night to really make a run. I like both players from EPC, Adam Awinder and Draven Zier. They've just been 2 huge parts of that, that season for the Cats, playing really, really well each and every week. And then Don Kramer, we just mentioned, who had a fantastic game against Dakota, puts up great numbers every week for this Fulton team. And as they kind of make this last kind of push the last 4 weeks to get back into the playoffs.
And I'll say it again, man. Dom Kramer puts some fun highlights, out there. He's a fun player to watch for sure. Just one of those guys like you keep your eye on when he's on the field. So, all right, let's wrap it up with some I-8FA, some 8-man football talk. The big one, Mitch, going back to last Thursday, Ridgewood gets the win over Amboy 34-22. We talked about that one on the Instant Reacts podcast. I encourage people to go back and listen to that one because we kind of broke this game down a little bit. Roy Sandberg, 168 yards and 3 touchdowns. You also had great efforts from Owen Anderson, Gavin Franks. Mitch, you were watching along with this one. You're keeping everybody updated on X throughout Thursday night. Tell us what you saw.
I just saw a Ridgewood team that looked determined to finally get over this hump of Amboy. They've been a thorn on their side. They lost earlier this year to Amboy. They lost obviously in the state championship game last year to Amboy, and it just looked like a team that just. I mean, they punched Amboy in the mouth. They really came out firing. Roy Sandberg was fantastic. Defense was great. You know, Amboy had a couple scores, but the Ridgewood just responded every time. So great win for Ridgewood. This one counted for their conference game, but most importantly, it just kind of shifts the rankings in 8-man a little bit and knocks Amboy down for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll stay with some of the teams. I think Amboy and Ridgewood are definitely teams to keep on your radar moving forward as we get closer to playoff time and come those playoff brackets. I think those are teams that you really got to watch out for because they've proven it. And, they're playing some really high-end football here. Some other teams clearly playing high-end football. No surprise, Polo remains undefeated. They get the win 54-6 over Alden Hebron. 4 Marcos had rushing touchdowns. Gus Mumford with 3 scores and 127 yards. Noah Dewey had 118 and 2 touchdowns. Billy Lowry and Jordan Reed also touchdowns for this Polo team that remains undefeated. And their rival just down the road, Milledgeville, gets the win 44-0 over West Carroll. So this was a game that we were curious to see, how does West Carroll stack? And I think they're still a good football team, but I think what we really saw in this one was that Milledgeville is maybe taking it to the next level, that they're really upper top echelon of this 8-man rank. You saw it here. They get the win 44-0. Another undefeated team to keep your eye on, Mitch, West Central. The Heat having a great season. They're sitting now. They get the win over West Prairie 40-32. So, Mitch, their 5th road game of the year.
Yep.
They get the win. They're 5-0 going home for the last 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, we've talked about that at length on this podcast. Just crazy schedule. But
we got to find out the answer.
They pulled it off.
Yeah, we got to find the answer eventually to why they did that. But
again, I'm more intrigued if next year if it's the opposite and they are at home for 5 straight and then go on the road. But hey, you know what? They managed being on the road and now they get to play at home.
Yep. A few other areas scores here. River Ridge gets the win 22-12 over Hiawatha. South Beloit gets the win 35-14 over Ashton Franklin Center. You have Flanagan Cornell Woodland 41-12 over Bushnell Prairie City. And then some from around the state. St. Thomas More gets the big win 52-6 over United Christian. Milford Cisna Park 32-26 over St. Anne. Martinsville 38-0 over South Fork. And I believe that's it. I believe that's the rundown of the 8-man scores. Mitch, looking ahead to the 8-man schedule next week, I'm catching an 8-man game next week. I'm going to the Blacktop rivalry. Polo on the road at Milledgeville, both undefeated in a rivalry game in week 6. I can't wait, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, get a good shot of that big missile out front.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's going to be a great game. Obviously been super impressed with Coach Roble this year and what numbers that they've been putting up. Let's see, what's their offense up to? 328 points. That, I mean, is just incredible scoring from Milledgeville. So yeah, it comes to Polo defense. It's allowed 14 points all year. So you've got the best offense against the best defense. So we like to see that. Can those names that you mentioned for Polo, Gus Mumford and Noah Dewey, can those guys get going that they're going to have to against this Milledgeville team that is just so good on defense?
Yep. Well, on the flip, I want to see, Milledgeville's guys, Carter Livingood,
right.
Kyson Francis, the names we've called out for them. Micah Tom Smith has been an impact player going back to last year. So some names to follow there as well. Looking around that North division of 8-man football, a few other games to watch. We didn't mention Orangeville got the win last week over Rockford Christian Life, 44-18. They will be on the road at Kirkland, Hiawatha this week. You have Rockford Christian Life hosting West Carroll. So West Carroll looking to bounce back this week against Christian Life. You also have, South Beloit. They will be on the road at Alden Hebron. Ashton Franklin Center will be at home against River Ridge. Let's head over to that West Division to see what matchups are coming up. Amboy, they got a tough road matchup this week. They go on the road to Flanagan Cornell Woodland, who is also sitting at 4-1. So, they're looking to bounce back, but that's a tough road trip they have. West Central, as we said, they return home. They'll be playing Bushnell Prairie City, who sits at 2-3 on the year. Ridgewood will be at home hosting West Prairie, who's 0-5. You have, Galva will be at home. This is a weird one, Mitch. Galva lost 20-14 to Peoria Heights.
Yep.
This week, they bounce back and play Peoria Heights at home.
Sure.
So not only do you play the same team twice, but you play them back-to-back weeks. That is a really bizarre scheduling quirk.
Yeah, we gotta figure this out. West Prairie does the same with Peoria Heights to end the season in weeks 8 and 9. So
very bizarre.
Hey, look, catch the excitement because you never know what you're going to see here in 8-man football, and sometimes it's the same opponent in back-to-back weeks.
Well, Mitch, we talked about a few of the names here. Who are some names to watch when we're talking players of the year in the 8-man ranks?
Yeah, I think you start with that game that we talked about, Ridgewood and Amboy. You saw plenty of talent. Royce Hamburg's been having a great year. Owen Anderson on the other side of the ball. Quinn Leffelman, quarterback Eddie Jones, throwing Gavin Franks for Ridgewood. So in that game alone, you saw quite a bit of talent in this 8-man division. But there's plenty of talent here.
Yep. Well, all right, Mitch, that wraps us up. As I mentioned, I'll be starting in Milledgeville on Friday. Take it in the Milledgeville Polo game, and then headed down the way to Sterling. So it's rivalry week for me because I'm catching Polo in Milledgeville, followed by Geneseo and Sterling. So on the opposite ends of the spectrum, the big schools and the small schools, but it's rivalry week all the way around. I'm catching hopefully some great matchups here.
Yeah. This week has. We talked about it throughout the show. There's more predictable games than there were last week, but still some incredibly meaningful games. I'm looking at Macomb and Farmington, and looking at Dupec and Lena Winslow. So when we recap this week, when we do the instant reacts and we do the show afterwards, I think we might have some potential conference champions that will be maybe early crowning, but they'll certainly be in the driver's seat.
I think this is the week we got to get Kyle Kampmeyer back in the instant reacts pod. We need his take on whatever plays out in the Lena Winslow Dupec showdown.
Yep.
Awesome.
I think so.
Awesome. All right. Well, I look forward to it. I can't wait for another Friday night. Thank you to everyone who listens, who subscribes, who follows along on X or on YouTube or on Instagram. We love it. It's a ton of fun. Mitch, be back at it Friday night. Actually, you'll be back at it Thursday because there's a couple Thursday games. So,
yep, I will. We'll be on it. We'll get those 2 Western Big Six games on Thursday, and then we'll be ready to go on Friday.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks to everyone who listens. Mitch, we'll talk to you soon.
That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter at ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.